My practice explores memory as both psychological and material condition. Working across sculpture, performance, installation, video, and sound, I investigate how personal memory shifts between preservation, distortion, and repetition. I'm interested in how emotional experiences can become physically materialized through objects, bodily actions, and immersive environments. This project began through investigating memory and the structures used to preserve it. I became interested in how photographs, keepsakes, and frames operate as containers of memory, while also flattening lived experience. In limitations, I softened the rigid wooden frames using satin fabric, ribbons, mesh, and bubble wrap. The repetitive bows reference femininity, decoration, and girlhood, reconnecting with aspects of childhood memory. Projection became a way of rejecting containment. By extending image beyond the frame through projection and lace shadows, I expanded memory physically into space. The shadow creates instability and uncertainty, reflecting how recollection itself is fragmented and unreliable. Sophie Calle and Rebecca Horn became key references within my practice. Cal's use of personal narrative and archival material influenced my approach to intimacy and memory. Rebecca Horn's exploration of bodily restriction informed my performance work surrounding discipline, containment, and vulnerability. My research then shifted from memory objects into the body itself. Revisiting childhood ballet memories became important because they carried strong association with discipline, discomfort, and imposed femininity. Through wrapping my body in ribbons, I explored my bodily restriction through repetitive action and physical tension. I documented these performances using disposable film cameras. The unpredictability and imperfections of analog films reflected the instability of memory itself. I also experimented with sequencing repetition through photograph arrangements to create bodily rhythm within the compositions. Hability risks influenced my understanding of immersive environments and psychological experience. Her installations combine projection, color, sound, and bodily perspective to create emotionally overwhelming space. This later became important within my own Dreamcore installations. In this performance work, wrapping the body in ribbons transformed decoration into restriction. I used ballet shoes and repetitive gestures to explore discipline, femininity, and bodily entrapment. The body became both sculptural material and site of emotional pressure. Squeeze, Breathe explored bodily tension through repetition and endurance. Breathing became symbolic within the work, functioning almost as resistance against pressure and restraint. Rachel McLean influenced the visual language of these performances. I became interested in how childlike and hypersaturated aesthetics could contain emotional discomfort underneath the surface. In this later stage of the performance, the body became increasingly restricted through repetitive wrapping. I wanted to restrain to emerge through softness rather than violence. My investigation into bodily control later expanded into material experimentation, using clay, bread, and silicone. These soft materials mimic flesh through swelling, compression, deformation, and externalizing bodily pressures materially. The silicone blob became a recurring sculptural object within my work. By placing it within public spaces, I explored displacement, bodily estrangement. The flesh-like form materializes anxiety surrounding excess visibility and bodily discomfort. The blob appears misplaced and vulnerable within public environments. I became interested in how small sculptures interventions could psychologically alter a space and create emotional unease. Sound became increasingly important with my practice as emotional trigger. Through producing and remaking music, I explored how repetition and slowed rhythms could generate nostalgia, discomfort, and hypnosis. By combining projection, sound, and the body, I explored immersive sensory environments. Projection allowed rhythms, images, and bodily movement to merge together into psychologically unstable spaces. My exploration of bodily control later developed into food, gluttony, and consumption. Bread became important because it exists between necessity and excess. By binding with ribbons, I explored tension between bodily discipline, desire, and anxiety. These investigations developed into my cake performance work. I filmed myself eating cake aggressively using a low-resolution camera to emphasize messiness, excess, and bodily discomfort. The performance became a confrontation with my own fear of consumption and bodily loss of control. Through this work, gluttony functions simultaneously as indulgence and psychological restriction. In Sugar, I used cake as both sculpture and participation. I offered viewers a real edible cake beside a grotesque preserved one, creating tension between desire and disgust, pleasure and excess. Reflecting on my childhood memories, I realized I was strongly drawn to empty shopping malls, corridors, and transitional spaces. This led me toward dreamcore and liminal aesthetic, where familiar environments became psychologically unstable through emptiness and artificial light. This digital collage reconstructs fragments of my childhood home in Beijing. By layering personal photographs into artificial dreamlike environments, I visualize memory as intimate, fragment, and unstable. These works shifted my practice increasingly towards immersive psychological environments rather than isolated objects. I became interested in how viewers physically experience atmosphere through sound, repetition, and spatial disorientation. Research into abandoned architecture expanded my interest in absence and liminality. These spaces feel emotionally suspended between past and present while still holding traces of human presence. These photographs reflect my long-term attraction towards empty spaces. Across different periods of my life, absence itself becomes emotionally charged within my work. Mika Rottenberg strongly influenced my understanding of bodily system and material pressure. Her use of squeezing, compression, and transformation informed my experiments with bread, silicone, and bodily material behavior. My current practice culminates in immersive, dreamlike environments combining projection, sound, light, and sculptural installation. Through repetition and sensory immersion, I aim to create psychologically suspended spaces where memory, bodily experience, consumption, and absence merge together. Thank you.